In today's video, we will inform you why the SpaceX lunar mission is so important. SpaceX is about to create history along with its fellow space organization NASA by taking humans back to the moon. So what took us so many years to get back to the moon? And how will SpaceX be contributing to this project? Stay tuned to find out more. SpaceX is a Hawthorne, California-based aerospace maker, space transportation services provider, and communications firm. Elon Musk created SpaceX in 2002, intending to lower the cost of space travel so that Mars may be colonized. The Falcon Heavy, the Falcon 9 launch systems, multiple rocket engines, the Dragon cargo crew spacecraft, and the Starlink communication satellites are all manufactured by SpaceX. NASA's Artemis mission, far more than a revival of the Apollo program, aims to return people to the lunar surface by 2025. Astronauts will spend several days or several weeks on the lunar surface, ultimately building a moon base and obtaining experience with the technology and procedures required to put humans on Mars one day. NASA has already designed a new, strong moonshot rocket, the SLS, and a new spacecraft, the Orion space capsule, far more sophisticated than the Apollo ship. However, the space agency only decided on a Human Landing System vehicle, HSL. This vehicle would transport men from lunar orbit to the moon's surface. SpaceX has resumed developing a HLS variation of its Starship rocket and spaceship after several days resulting due to legal disputes by SpaceX rival Blue Origin. Artemis 3 will bring American astronauts back to the moon in a retro-looking Starship lying on its tail just like a silver rocket from the 1950s science fiction books, pointing up to the future. Now, let's talk about what the Artemis HLS is. The Artemis HLS is a modern version of the Apollo program's Lunar Excursion Module, or LEM. NASA's Orion spacecraft will transport the Artemis 3 crew to lunar orbit. Still, unlike the Apollo crew module, Orion will never touch the moon. Instead, Orion will meet up with the Starship HLS. The two spacecraft will dock at NASA's Gateway, a tiny space station in lunar orbit. The Artemis astronauts will next move to the Starship HLS and use the SpaceX spacecraft to descend to the moon's surface, which will serve as the base of operations for the next 6 days. The Starship HLS will bring the astronauts back to orbit and Gateway after their mission, when they will switch back to Orion for their voyage back to Earth. SpaceX has been given a $2.89 billion solid contract by NASA to continue developing a human landing system to allow American astronauts to return to the moon. NASA's Artemis program is U.S. government-funded, as well as by an international human spaceflight initiative aiming at landing the very first woman as well as the very first person of color on the moon by 2024. According to NASA, the SpaceX HLS will be vital in the final phase of the astronauts' voyage to the moon's surface. The Starship's rocket influenced the design of SpaceX crewed lunar lander. A roomy cabin and 2 airlocks for astronaut moonwalks are included in the landing system. Following NASA's grant of a $135 million contract, work on the human lander began last year. The aerospace business has worked with NASA specialists to guarantee that the HLS meets essential performance criteria and human spaceflight standards in engineering, safety, health, and medical technology. As a result, by picking Starship, NASA has a long-term partnership with common ambitions who will journey to Mars independent of current domestic politics. Both parties gain from the situation. Starship will receive a major monetary infusion from SpaceX to access the lunar surface. While backing a Mars project, NASA saves billions of dollars on a lunar lander. Hold on guys, before we proceed any further, we hope you're finding this video enjoyable so far. Before we tell you why this mission is so important, make sure you give this video a like by hitting the thumbs up button, and do not forget to subscribe to SpaceX Facts. Great, let us move on. Why is this mission so important? There might be a billion questions raging inside your head right now. Why go to the moon? Why is this mission so important? Well, we'll answer all of it. The Starship is a vehicle that the world has never seen before. If it succeeds, the enormous spaceship will provide NASA with new options it didn't have previously. That is because the Starship has the potential to achieve the long-awaited aim of quick, low-cost launch system reuse. Consider the current situation. NASA's big Space Launch System rocket will launch 95 metric tons into low Earth orbit. One will be built every year by NASA and its contractors, led by Boeing. The disposable spacecraft will launch a single payload at the cost of almost $2 billion each mission before crashing into the ocean. If SpaceX's Starship can reach the moon, it might theoretically take humans there as well. The Space Launch System and Orion are completely unnecessary. But, for a good reason, NASA is just not ready to say goodbye to those vehicles yet. First, there's a technological aspect. SpaceX has demonstrated that it can land the booster stage of its Falcon 9 rocket upright with a heavy pressurized crew capsule on top of it. Meanwhile, the Starship, an order of magnitude larger than the Falcon 9, is still working on perfecting its landing on Earth. The Super Heavy, the booster, has yet to fly. NASA is not currently ready to send people into space on such new technology, although that may change in the future. Furthermore, spacecraft returning from the moon strike the atmosphere at a far faster velocity than those returning from Earth orbit. During its 2014 test flight, NASA's Orion crew capsule successfully performed a high-speed re-entry. The massive Starship spacecraft will take a page from the Space Shuttle's playbook and belly flop into the atmosphere. Artemis's present approach is a deft blend of political and technological concessions. Every major NASA contractor and the agency's key overseas partners will take part in the program through the Gateway Initiative. Artemis uses traditional cost-plus and new fixed-price contracts for its primary components, with employment spread across the country. It's unavoidable when a huge project relies on discretionary spending supervised by a representative democratic system. In the last 2 decades, they've developed from a small startup to the world's leading corporation of aerospace, launching cargo and astronauts at a rate that rivals national space agencies. It truly is impressive and remarkable, and it will be the ultimate approval of the public-private partnership paradigm if Starship is successful in returning humans to the moon's surface. This project can really help them achieve global support and trust. NASA currently trusts SpaceX with the lives of its astronauts to make it to the ISS or the International Space Station, relies on the firm to supply the station, and entrusts NASA's most valuable research missions to their rockets. NASA will get a lunar lander for a fraction of the price of the Apollo-era lunar module, and SpaceX, a private company, will get autonomous access to the lunar surface, which was previously the sole domain of a single country.